evening. My name is Megan Miller, and I will be sharing with you the history of the Tuskegee Airmen. Tuskegee Airmen, what comes to your mind when you hear me mention this group? Many of you are thinking a group of pilots, and many of you may not even know the group into which I am referring. Well, from my research, I can tell you that the group were more than a simple group of pilots. According to the TuskegeeAirmen.org, the Tuskegee Airmen were dedicated young African American men who enlisted to become America's first black military airmen. They came from different sections of the United States in many different aspects of life, but all having in common the desire to fly in the United States military and all being young African American men. They each possessed talents, strengths, and the intelligence to help build such an elite team, which helped the men become the pilots they were and the legends they are today. There were many problems that became for the group of young men wanting to be pilots in the early 1940s. The United States had a great deal of the population who were racist and believed African Americans lacked any kind of intelligence needed to succeed in society. They were treated like animals, and at one time, the men were used as experimental lab rats for the syphilis vaccination. The men initially did not receive the respect and the honor they deserved, due mainly because of the color of their skin. The men were often referred to as monkeys and or niggers. The young airmen were questioned about their intelligence and the physical and mental capabilities they each possessed. The men were forced to take their pilot's examination a second time, due mainly because the men scored nothing less than a 95%, which was the case for all the men the second time they took the pilot's examination. The men were forced many times to go through rigorous flight training drills. In the movie right here, the Tuskegee Airmen, based on a true story of the 332nd Fighter Squadron, it depicts one drill which led to the death of a cadet and the flight trainer. Due to the high stress of the training, some men walked out the program fearing they would never successfully finish the program. The racism and the hard training tactics were fuel for the men's self-doubt. Their decisions and ideas were always downplayed by their superiors. This caused the men to start second-guessing themselves and not believing in themselves. Instead of the men being encouraged, the men were constantly reminded that due to their skin color, that society would never accept them as professionals. With all this said, and with all the obstacles the men needed to overcome, they did and became great pilots and historical figures. This success was reached because soon individuals were able to overcome the racial hump and see these determined pilots. The men started to believe in themselves and go after their dreams. They proved themselves over and over again, no matter how many tries it took and no matter how hard the work was. The Tuskegee Airmen proved that with much determination, any obstacle can be overcome. The men showed you should stand up for what you believe and not let no one stand in the way of achieving your dreams. In the book right here, The Black Knights, the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, it states the men of the Tuskegee experience proved that they had what it takes not only in a time of war, but in a time of peace. The men had courage. And it was not until the early 1990s where these men fully recognized for everything they had to achieve to even come to the Tuskegee experience and have a try, and they were not recognized for what they had to go through to pass the full course. And that is the case with most of the African Americans in history, and still to this day, there may be some African Americans that we are not aware of and the struggles that they went through and the things that they have achieved. Today, the Tuskegee Airmen hold a special place in history as the first elite African American flyer fighting squad. They will always be commended for their struggles, sacrifices, and journey into successes in history, and will forever be an inspiration to many that were with them and many after them. I appreciate all your time and attention, and thank you very much.